Welcome back to my channel. Tonight, I invite you to leave behind the noise of the day and step into a world of calm and imagination. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let every worry melt away. For the next hour, I'll guide you through a gentle, soothing story crafted to help your mind relax and drift into peaceful sleep. Make yourself comfortable, let the quiet surround you, and let's begin. Tonight, as the world outside falls into silence, I invite you to let your mind drift and your body unwind. Imagine the softest pillow beneath your head, the lightest blanket wrapping you in warmth, and the calm rhythm of your breathing guiding you deeper into peace. This is a story meant to soothe your thoughts and lead you gently into dreams, a story where every word is a quiet step towards serenity. Far away, beyond the mountains and the silver rivers, there lies a small, forgotten village. It is the kind of place that does not appear on maps, the kind of place only found by those who wander without destination. The village rests within a valley surrounded by tall pines, their dark green branches whispering with the wind. The nights there are cool and clear, with a sky filled with more stars than one could ever count. In this village lived a woman named Alara. She was neither young nor old, but somewhere in the middle of life's journey. She had always been drawn to the night, to the quiet that comes when the world sleeps. Her home stood at the edge of the forest, a humble cottage built of stone and wood, with a small window that faced the horizon. Every evening, as the last golden rays of sunlight faded, she would sit by that window and watch as the world softened into twilight. Alara was known by the villagers for her gentle heart and her way of listening. She believed that everything, the wind, the trees, the rivers, had a voice if one only slowed down enough to hear. And so, every night before sleeping, she would step outside, letting the cool air brush against her skin, and simply listen. One such night, when the moon hung low like a silver lantern, Alara felt an unusual stillness. The forest, usually alive with the quiet hum of crickets and distant owls, was completely silent. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and walked slowly down the narrow path leading into the woods. Her footsteps were soft, almost hesitant, as though she feared disturbing the deep calm that surrounded her. The deeper she went, the more she noticed the way the moonlight spilled across the ground, painting silver patterns on the earth. The leaves shimmered faintly, and the air smelled of pine and distant rain. She stopped by a fallen log and sat down, her breath rising in little clouds. For a long moment, she closed her eyes and let the silence speak. And then, as if carried by a breeze that did not touch her skin, she heard it, a distant sound, not quite music, not quite voice. It was a soft hum, a tone so gentle that it might have been the memory of a song. She rose slowly, following the sound, each step leading her deeper into the forest until she reached a small clearing she had never seen before. In the center of that clearing stood a tree unlike any she had ever encountered. Its bark was pale and smooth, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Its branches spread wide, and at their tips, instead of leaves, there were tiny lights, like stars caught in a web of wood. The sound came from the tree itself, a hum that felt like a lullaby sung to the earth. Alara stood there, mesmerized. She reached out and touched the trunk, and in that instant, she felt warmth, as though the tree had a heart, as though it remembered every dream, every wish, every quiet hope whispered beneath the night sky. She leaned against it, and for a moment, all her worries melted away. From that night on, Alara visited the tree every evening. It became her secret, a place where she would bring her thoughts, her fears, and her dreams. She never told anyone in the village about it, not because she wanted to keep it for herself, but because some places are too sacred to be spoken of. The nights grew colder as the seasons changed, and the first snow began to fall. The village became quiet, the people retreating into their warm homes. But Alara continued her walks, her footprints marking the path through the snow-covered woods. She would sit by the glowing tree and listen to its hum, letting it calm her heart. Sometimes she thought she could almost hear words within its song, words of comfort, of love, of connection. And as she sat there, the world seemed to slow. Time itself felt softer, as though it had no reason to rush. She would close her eyes and imagine the lives of the stars above, how they had burned for thousands of years, watching over the earth. She imagined the rivers, flowing endlessly, carrying with them the memory of mountains and rain. She imagined the quiet hearts of the villagers, each carrying their own story, their own silent dreams that on one particular night, when the snow was thick and the world felt muffled, Alara decided to sleep by the tree. She brought with her a small blanket and a lantern, though she found she did not need the light. The tree's glow was enough. Lying beneath its branches, she felt as if she were cradled by the sky itself. She thought about her life, the people she loved, the moments of laughter and sorrow, the days that had passed like whispers. And as she drifted into sleep, she felt the hum of the tree around her, a song that carried her into a dream in that dream, she saw the village, but it was different. The houses were warm and bright, and the air was filled with music. She saw children running, their laughter ringing like bells, and she saw the old and the young gathered together, their hearts open. She saw the seasons turn like pages, each one bringing its own beauty. And she saw herself, sitting by the window of her cottage, smiling. When Alara awoke, the morning light had just begun to touch the horizon. She rose slowly, feeling more rested than she had in years. The tree stood silently, its glow faint in the daylight, but she could still feel its presence, still hear its song somewhere deep inside her. She walked back to the village with a sense of peace, as if the night had gifted her something she could never lose. From then on, she lived her days with a calm heart, always remembering the song of the tree, always carrying its quiet strength. And so, every night, as the stars came out, she would close her eyes and listen. The wind, the rustle of leaves, the soft rhythm of the earth. These were the lullabies that reminded her of the stillness waiting in every moment. You, too, can find such stillness tonight. As you lie here, let your thoughts drift like leaves on a gentle stream. Feel the quiet hum of your own breath, the steady beat of your heart. Imagine a place of peace, where time slows, where the world is soft and kind. Let the night hold you. Let your body grow heavy, your mind grow light. The stars are watching, the earth is humming, and you are safe, you are warm, you are home. Story number 2 tonight. As the stars scatter across the velvet sky, let your mind sink into stillness. Every breath you take is like the gentle tide of an endless ocean, flowing in and out. I have another story to share with you, a story woven with dreams and quiet magic, one that will take you far from the noise of the day and into a place where peace is all that exists. There is a small island, far out in a calm, endless sea. This island is not like any other place on earth. It is a place where time moves slowly, where the wind carries the scent of flowers even in winter, and where the waves sing soft lullabies as they kiss the shore. The sand on this island glows faintly under the moonlight, as if it remembers every step taken across it. On this island lived a man named Kalen. He had lived there for many years, though he had no memory of how he first arrived. It was as if the sea itself had brought him there one night, laying him gently upon the glowing sands. His life on the island was simple, but it was full of beauty. Each morning, he would wake to the sound of waves and the distant calls of seabirds. Each night, he would sit by a small fire and watch the stars rise, painting the heavens with silver light. The Kalen's cottage was made of driftwood and stone, with a roof woven from palm leaves. It was warm, always smelling of the ocean breeze and the faint sweetness of flowers that grew just outside his door. Though he was alone, he never felt lonely. The island itself was alive, its every sound and sight like a companion. The trees swayed with the wind as though they were dancing just for him. The waves whispered stories of distant lands he could not see, but could almost imagine. One evening, as Kalen walked along the shoreline, he found something unusual. Washed up on the sand was a bottle, its glass smooth and shimmering in the fading light. Inside, there was a piece of paper, tightly rolled and sealed with a strip of seaweed. He opened it slowly, careful not to tear it, and on the paper were words written in a language he somehow understood. Daiti read, "To the one who listens to the sea, there is a place beyond this island where the stars touch the water. Follow the song of the waves, and you will find what your heart is seeking." Kalen looked out at the horizon, where the sea met the sky, and for the first time, he felt a stirring of curiosity. He had always accepted his life on the island, never questioning why he was there or what lay beyond. But now, with the letter in hand, he felt as though the sea was inviting him to discover something more. That night, as he sat by his fire, he listened more closely to the waves. They seemed to have a rhythm, almost like a voice calling softly. The stars above twinkled brighter than usual, as if they were guiding him. He closed his eyes, letting the warmth of the fire and the whisper of the sea carry him into sleep. In his dream, he saw a path of light stretching across the water, leading far into the distance. It was not made of wood or stone, but of pure starlight, glowing softly against the dark ocean. He felt himself walking upon it, each step taking him closer to something he could not yet see. When he awoke, the dream lingered, and he knew he had to follow it. He built a small raft from pieces of driftwood and vines, strong enough to carry him across the gentle waves. Before setting off, he walked through the island one last time, touching the trunks of the trees, listening to the quiet hum of the flowers, and breathing in the salty air that had been his home for so long. The morning was calm when he set sail, the water smooth like glass. Hours passed as he drifted across the sea, the sun warm on his back and the cool breeze carrying him forward. At night, the stars appeared, just as they had in his dream, and he felt a strange sense of peace, as if he were exactly where he was meant to be. Days and nights blended together as Kalen followed the stars and the song of the waves. Sometimes he would see shapes beneath the water, gentle shadows moving gracefully, as if the sea creatures were watching over him. Other times, he would hear faint music, like distant voices singing. One night, when the moon was full and the sea shone like silver, Kalen saw something extraordinary. Ahead of him, the horizon began to glow, not with the light of the sun or stars, but with a golden warmth that seemed to rise from the water itself. As he came closer, he realized it was not an island, but a floating meadow of flowers, thousands of them, their petals glowing softly. The raft stopped as if by magic, and Kalen stepped onto the meadow. The flowers whispered as he walked among them, their petals brushing against his skin like soft silk. At the center of the meadow stood a tree, its branches heavy with blossoms that glowed with every color of the rainbow. Under the tree was a pool of perfectly still water, so clear that Kalen could see the stars reflected in it, as though the sky and sea had become one. That he knelt beside the pool and looked into its depths. What he saw was not his reflection, but images of his life, the quiet days on the island, the laughter of a distant memory, the faces of people he had once loved. The pool seemed to hold all his memories, all his dreams, everything he had ever been. As he gazed into the water, a voice rose softly, like the wind through the flowers. "You have listened to the sea," it said, "and the sea has brought you home." Kalen felt tears in his eyes, though he did not know why. There was no sadness, only a deep, quiet joy. He sat under the tree, leaning against its trunk, and for the first time, he felt truly at peace. The night deepened, the stars shimmering above, and Kalen closed his eyes. The song of the waves, the whisper of the flowers, and the hum of the earth all blended together into a lullaby. He felt himself drifting, not just into sleep, but into something greater, a dream without end, a place where he was safe, where he belonged. And as you listen now, let the waves of this story wash over you. Feel the calmness of Kalen's journey, the gentle hum of the sea, and the softness of the starlit night. Let every word settle you deeper into rest. You are safe. You are warm. And as the story fades into silence, you can let go of the day and surrender to the dream waiting for you. Story 3. The night has come once again, and with it, a gentle stillness that invites you to rest. Take a deep breath and feel the weight of the day slowly melt away. Each sound around you grows softer, and your mind begins to drift like a feather carried on the breeze. Tonight's story will take you to a place of quiet magic, where time moves slower, where every sound, every moment, is designed to soothe your heart and guide you into the sweetest of dreams, far beyond the cities, beyond the fields, and past the quiet mountains. There is a valley untouched by time. The valley is hidden, as if the world itself is keeping its secret. Here, the sky is always clear, and the stars shine brighter than anywhere else. A silver river winds through the valley, its surface glimmering as though someone has sprinkled moonlight upon it. On the banks of that river stands a single wooden bridge, old and worn, but strong, as if it has always been there, waiting for those who seek it. In this valley lived a young woman named Celera. She was quiet and thoughtful, someone who preferred the company of the river's whispers to the noise of crowded places. Every evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, she would walk to the bridge and sit upon its edge, watching the water flow beneath her feet. She found comfort in its endless movement, in the way it carried both light and shadow with equal grace. Celera lived in a small cottage not far from the bridge. The cottage was simple, built from pale stones and surrounded by a garden of wildflowers. Every morning, the scent of lavender and jasmine would fill the air, and the soft hum of bees would wake her from her dreams. But it was the nights that she loved most. The nights in the valley had a special magic. When the moon rose high, it would bathe the river and the hills in silver light, turning the valley into something that felt alive, as though it were breathing with her. One night, as Celera sat by the bridge, she noticed something unusual. The river, usually calm, seemed to glow from within, as though there was a light deep beneath its surface. It wasn't just the reflection of the moon. It was something else, something softer and warmer. She leaned closer, watching, and then she saw it. A small, luminous fish swimming just below the surface. Its scales shimmered like liquid gold, and wherever it moved, the water seemed to sparkle. The fish paused as if it had noticed her. Then, To Solara's amazement, it leapt out of the water, landing gracefully on the wooden bridge beside her. It was no bigger than her hand, but it radiated a soft glow that lit up the night. Without fear, she reached out, and the fish rested in her palm, its warmth surprising and comforting. And then the fish spoke, not with words, but with a feeling, a quiet message that filled her mind. It told her of a place upstream, a place where dreams were born. It told her that the river was not just water, but a pathway that carried every hope, every wish, every quiet whisper of the heart. Celera listened, her eyes wide, her heart steady. The fish leapt back into the water and began to swim upstream, its glow leaving a trail of light in the current. Without hesitation, she followed. The path along the river was soft and quiet, the grass cool beneath her bare feet. The night air was filled with the scent of pine and fresh water, and the stars above seemed to watch her, as if guiding her forward. She walked for what felt like hours, though time had no meaning here. The river's glow grew brighter the further she went, and the sounds of the world seemed to soften until all she could hear was the gentle murmur of the water. Eventually, she came to a place where the river widened into a pool, perfectly still, its surface smooth like glass. In the center of the pool was a stone, and on that stone grew a single white flower. The petals of the flower shone like moonlight, and as Celera approached, she felt a warmth in her chest, as though the flower's glow was touching her heart. The luminous fish swam to the stone and circled it, sending ripples across the still water. Celera knelt by the edge of the pool, her reflection mixing with the stars above, and she understood, without words, that this was a place of dreams. It was here that the river gathered the wishes of the world, carrying them through time and memory, weaving them into the lives of those who needed them. She closed her eyes and placed her hand on the water. In that moment, she felt her mind grow quiet, her thoughts slowing like leaves settling at the bottom of a stream. She thought of her dreams, the ones she carried in silence. She thought of the people she loved, the moments she wanted to hold forever. The water seemed to take those thoughts and hold them gently, as though promising to keep them safe. When she opened her eyes, the flower on the stone had bloomed even brighter, and the fish was circling faster, its glow pulsing with every movement. Then, with a sudden stillness, the pool began to reflect not just the stars, but images, dreams, memories, futures. She saw herself as a child, running through fields of flowers. She saw herself years from now, sitting by the same river, smiling as though the world had given her everything she needed. It was all there, woven together like threads of light. Celera stayed by the pool until the first pale light of dawn touched the horizon. The fish swam back to her, glowing softly, and for a moment, she felt as though the night itself was saying goodbye. She whispered a thank you to the river, to the flower, to the dreams that had shown her the beauty of simply being alive. Then she turned and began the walk back to her cottage, the memory of the glowing water still warm in her mind. That morning, as the sun rose, the valley was bathed in golden light. Celera sat by her window, watching the world wake, and she felt a calmness that she had never known before. She understood now that dreams were not just things that lived in sleep. They were part of every moment, every breath, every step she took. And as you listen now, you can let this story carry you into your own dreams. Imagine the quiet valley, the glowing river, the soft sound of water moving under a starlit sky. Let your breath become slow and steady, like the flow of the river. Feel your body growing heavy, your thoughts softening, and your heart becoming light. You are safe. You are calm. The night is here to hold you. and you can let yourself drift into peaceful, endless rest. Story 4. The night has fallen, wrapping the world in a soft blanket of quiet. Outside, the stars shimmer like tiny lanterns hung across the heavens, each one carrying a story of its own. Take a slow, deep breath. Let it out. Feel the weight of your day lifting off your shoulders. Tonight, I will take you on a journey far away, into a world where the night sings, and where every breath of wind carries a secret meant just for you. There was once a small village built on the edge of an endless desert. The sand there stretched as far as the eye could see, rolling into soft dunes that glowed gold beneath the sunlight and silver under the moon. Life in the village was simple. People rose with the sun, worked with the rhythm of the earth, and ended their days under skies full of stars. Among the villagers was a man named Orion. He was known not for his strength or skill, but for the way he looked at the world. He believed the desert was alive, that the shifting sands whispered stories of old travelers and forgotten dreams. Every night, when the village slept, Orion would climb to the top of a dune and sit quietly, listening to the wind move across the sand point one evening. As the sun dipped low and the sky turned shades of rose and violet, Orion climbed his favorite dune. The desert was unusually still. The air felt heavier, as though waiting for something. He gazed out across the sands, his eyes drawn to a distant shimmer, something glowing faintly just beyond the horizon. Curiosity stirred in his heart. He decided to follow the light. With nothing but his sandals, a small satchel of water, and the moonlight to guide him, Orion stepped into the vast sea of sand. Each step was slow and deliberate, the sand soft beneath his feet, the cool night breeze brushing against his face. The stars above seemed to brighten, as if watching his journey. Hours passed, and the glow grew stronger. It was not the cold, distant glow of the moon, but something warmer, like a lantern or perhaps a fire. By the time he reached it, the night was deep and silent. What he found made him pause. There, standing alone in the desert, was an ancient stone arch. It was tall and weathered, its surface carved with symbols that seemed to shift under the moonlight. Within the arch's frame was not emptiness, but a swirling light, like a pool of liquid silver. Orion's breath caught in his throat. It was as if the arch were a doorway, not just to another place, but to another world that he stepped closer, his hand trembling as he reached out. The surface of the light rippled like water, cool and smooth beneath his fingertips. Without thinking, he took a step through. Suddenly, the air was different. The ground beneath his feet was soft, like moss. He looked around, and what he saw took his breath away. He was no longer in the desert. He stood in a forest glowing with soft golden light. The trees were tall and ancient, their leaves shimmering like they were made of glass. A river wound through the forest, glowing faintly as though the stars had melted into its current. The air was filled with a gentle hum, a sound that was neither music nor voice, but something in between. Orion walked slowly, taking in the beauty of this strange, dreamlike world. As he followed the river, he began to see small orbs of light floating among the trees. They moved gently, like fireflies, but brighter, each one glowing with its own color: blue, green, gold, violet. He reached out to touch one, and when his fingers brushed against it, a vision filled his mind. He saw a memory that wasn't his. A child laughing, running through fields of flowers, their joy as pure as sunlight. Then the image faded, and the orb floated away. Orion realized that these lights were dreams, floating freely like living things. As he continued walking, He found himself arriving at a clearing where a single tree stood, unlike any other. Its trunk was silver, its branches spreading wide, heavy with glowing blossoms. Beneath it, the ground was covered in soft petals that glowed faintly, as if the stars themselves had fallen and come to rest there. Orion sat beneath the tree, feeling a calmness he had never known. The hum of the forest seemed to grow softer, wrapping around him like a lullaby. For a long time, he simply breathed, watching the lights drift above him, feeling the warmth of the glowing petals beneath his hands. He did not know how long he stayed there. Time seemed to dissolve in this place, every moment stretching into eternity. At some point, he felt his eyes grow heavy, and without meaning to, he closed them to eye in his dream. He saw the desert again, but this time it was full of life. The sand bloomed with flowers of gold and white, and the air was filled with the sound of music. The villagers were laughing, their faces bright with joy. He saw himself among them, smiling in a way he had not smiled in years. The dream felt so real, so warm, that he did not want to leave. When he opened his eyes, the golden forest was still there, but the light seemed softer now, as though the place was saying goodbye. Orion rose, his heart filled with gratitude. He found the stone arch waiting for him at the edge of the clearing, its swirling light calling him home. As he stepped through, he found himself back in the desert, the first light of dawn touching the horizon. The arch was gone, as if it had never been there. But the calmness he had found remained. He walked back to the village slowly, feeling as though the desert had whispered one last story just for him. From that day forward, Orion was different. He smiled more often. He listened not just to the desert, but to the hearts of the people around him. And every night, as he sat on his favorite dune, he closed his eyes and remembered the glowing forest, the silver tree, and the dream that had changed him. And as you listen now, you too can let this story wash over you like a gentle breeze. Imagine the cool desert night, the glowing lights, and the soft hum of the forest. Let your breath slow, your thoughts quiet, and your body become heavy with rest. You are safe. You are calm. And the night is here to hold you, gently, as you drift into dreams of your own. Story number 5. The night has arrived, painting the sky with deep shades of indigo and silver. Stars glimmer like distant lanterns, and the air is soft, carrying the quiet hum of a world at rest. I invite you now to close your eyes and let each word drift into your thoughts like gentle ripples on still water. Take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and exhale slowly. Feel the weight of the day dissolving, leaving only calmness behind. Tonight's story is a journey into the heart of a faraway place, a land where the seasons move at their own pace, and the night carries secrets that only reveal themselves to those who listen. In a small, secluded valley surrounded by snow-dusted mountains, there was a village unlike any other. The houses were built of dark wood and stone, their windows glowing warmly even in the coldest nights. A single cobblestone road wound through the center of the village, leading to an ancient well said to be as old as the mountains themselves. The well was known to the villagers not just for its water, but for the whispers that echoed faintly from its depths during quiet, moonlit nights. Among the villagers was a young woman named Amira. She was gentle, with a heart as soft as the evening wind and a mind full of unspoken dreams. Amira spent most of her days weaving cloth in her small home, but at night, when the village was asleep, she would wander the paths under the stars. She loved the stillness of the night, the way the moonlight touched every roof and tree with silver. It was during one of these midnight walks that her story truly began. The night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that makes every sound sharper. The snow on the rooftops sparkled under the moonlight like tiny diamonds. As Amira walked past the old well, she paused, for she heard something unusual, a soft voice, humming a tune so faint it was almost part of the wind. She leaned closer to the well, listening, and the voice grew clearer. It wasn't words, not exactly, but a melody that carried warmth, like a lullaby sung from a world deep below. Amira felt something stir within her, a quiet calling. Without thinking, she whispered back, her breath forming clouds in the frozen air. To her surprise, the humming stopped, and then, ever so softly, a reply came, not in words, but in feeling. It was as though the well itself was speaking to her heart. The next night, Amira returned. This time, she brought a lantern, its golden light flickering across the stones. She sat by the well, her hands wrapped around its cold edge, and listened. The voice returned, soft and slow, as though waiting just for her. It told her of a path that lay beyond the mountains, a place where the stars touched the earth and dreams became real. Amira couldn't explain why, but she knew she had to follow this path. And so, as dawn approached, she began to pack her things. A warm cloak, a small loaf of bread, a flask of water, and a single candle. She left her cottage just as the first light of morning kissed the peaks of the mountains, the village still sleeping behind her. The journey ahead was quiet and slow. The road wound upward through the forest that covered the mountain's lower slopes. Snow clung to the branches, and the air smelled of pine and frost. As she walked, she thought of the voice in the well, its gentle song still lingering in her memory like the warmth of a fading fire. Days passed. Each night, Amira would find a place to rest, lighting her candle and watching its flame dance in the darkness. The candlelight reminded her of the well's voice, soft, patient, guiding her forward on the fifth night. After hours of climbing, she reached the top of the mountain pass. The air was thin and silent, the stars so close it seemed she could touch them. And there, on the horizon, she saw something extraordinary, a valley bathed in light, though there was no sun. It was as if the stars themselves had settled upon the earth, their glow spilling across the land in soft, shimmering waves. She descended slowly, her footsteps crunching on the frozen ground. The valley was unlike anything she had ever seen. There were no houses, no roads, only fields of frost-covered grass that sparkled like crystals and rivers of liquid silver winding through the hills. In the center of the valley stood a tree, taller than any building she had known. Its trunk glowed faintly, and its branches stretched wide, heavy with blossoms of white light. Amira approached the tree, her heart beating softly. As she drew near, she felt warmth wash over her, as though the tree were alive and breathing. She reached out and touched its bark, and in that instant, she felt the hum of the well's voice once again, but now it was clearer, stronger, surrounding her like a gentle embrace. The tree showed her visions, not with images, but with feelings. It told her that this place was where dreams rested, waiting to be carried to those who needed them. Every dream ever wished upon a star, every hope whispered in the dark, flowed through this valley, carried by the rivers of silver light. Amira stayed beneath the tree for hours, listening. She closed her eyes and let the quiet soak into her, filling every corner of her mind with peace. For the first time, she felt completely still, as though she had found the place her heart had always been searching for. When she awoke the next morning, the valley was still glowing softly, and the air was filled with a quiet warmth that melted the cold from her bones. She knew it was time to return to her village, but she also knew that she would never forget this place. As she began her journey home, she carried with her the calm of the valley, the song of the well, and the soft hum of the dream tree. And as you listen now, you can imagine yourself walking through that valley too. Picture the glowing rivers, the silver blossoms, and the quiet warmth that surrounds you. Feel your breath slowing, your body becoming lighter, as though every step takes you closer to rest. The stars are above you, the earth is calm beneath you, and the night is wrapping you in a blanket of peace. Close your eyes and let the story drift into silence. Feel the weight of sleep beginning to settle. You are safe. You are warm. You are home, and the dreams are waiting for you, gentle and endless. Story number 6. The night has settled, quiet and unhurried, wrapping the world in soft shadows. Outside, the stars glimmer faintly, like tiny lanterns scattered across the sky. The moon is bright tonight, casting a silver glow over the earth, and the air is cool and still. Take a slow breath in, hold it for just a moment, and then exhale. Let every sound around you fade. Let your thoughts settle, like leaves drifting to the surface of a calm lake. Tonight's story is a long journey, meant to carry you into a place of rest, where every word moves like a whisper on the wind. Far beyond the lands we know, where the mountains fade into mist and the rivers disappear into quiet valleys, there is a road that few have ever walked. This road begins with a single stone arch, half hidden beneath creeping ivy and wildflowers. It is said that this road was built not for travelers of the body, but for travelers of the heart, for those who are ready to leave behind their worries and find a place of peace. There was once a wanderer named Lorien. He was a quiet soul, someone who found beauty not in crowded streets or busy markets, but in the spaces where silence lived. He had spent many years traveling the world, moving from village to village, mountain to mountain, always searching for something he could not name. Though he had seen great cities, towering forests, and endless seas, he felt that something was missing, like a dream he could not quite remember. One autumn evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of gold and rose, Lorien found himself on the edge of a forgotten forest. The trees were old, their trunks twisted and covered with moss, their roots pushing up from the ground like the fingers of ancient giants. The air smelled of damp earth and fallen leaves, and there was a quiet hum, as if the forest itself was breathing. He followed a narrow path, letting his footsteps guide him deeper into the woods. As twilight fell, he reached the stone arch. It was taller than a man, built of pale stone that shimmered faintly under the rising moon. Something about it called to him, though he did not know why. He stepped through it, and when he did, the world seemed to change. The air grew softer, the trees began to glow faintly, and the silence deepened into something warm and alive. The path beyond the arch wound gently through the forest, lined with flowers that gave off a faint silver light. Above, the stars shone brighter than he had ever seen, as though they had moved closer just to watch him. Lorien walked slowly, his footsteps silent on the soft earth, and for the first time in many years, he felt at peace. Hours passed, though he did not feel tired. The forest was endless, yet comforting, like a dream that has no end and no beginning. Eventually, he reached a clearing where a small lake lay perfectly still, its surface reflecting the sky like a mirror. At the center of the lake was an island, no larger than a garden, and on that island grew a single tree. The tree was unlike any Lorien had ever seen. Its bark shimmered like silver, and its branches were heavy with blossoms of pale blue light. A narrow wooden boat was waiting by the shore, as if someone had placed it there just for him. Without hesitation, he stepped inside and began to row toward the island. The water was so still that each ripple spread slowly, carrying the reflection of the moon across the surface like silk. When he reached the island, he stepped onto its soft grass and approached the tree. The tree seemed alive in a way that went beyond mere growth. As Lorien touched its bark, he felt warmth beneath his fingers, like a slow, steady heartbeat. Then, as if responding to his touch, the blossoms began to fall, drifting around him like glowing snowflakes. Each blossom that touched him filled him with a memory, not just his own, but memories of laughter, kindness, and love from countless souls who had walked before him. He sat beneath the tree, leaning against its trunk, and for a long time, he simply breathed. The silence of the place was not empty but full, like a song too soft to hear with the ears, but felt with the heart. He closed his eyes, and the world around him seemed to fade into a dream. In that dream, Lorien found himself walking through fields of endless flowers, their petals glowing in shades of white and silver. The air was warm, carrying the scent of lavender and rain. He saw rivers of golden light winding through the fields, and in the distance, mountains of crystal that shone under a sun that never burned but only comforted. There were no shadows here, no weight of time, only stillness, as though the world itself had paused to rest. He walked for what felt like hours, though time meant nothing here. He met no one, yet he felt as if he were not alone. The trees, the rivers, the flowers, they all seemed to watch him, to welcome him. He found a small hill, climbed to its peak, and from there, he could see the entire dream world stretching out before him like a painting of light and peace. He sat there, letting the vision fill him with warmth. When Lorien woke beneath the silver tree, the blossoms were still falling, their light soft against his skin. He realized that this place was not meant to be understood but felt, and that its magic was not in what it showed him, but in how it reminded him to be still, to simply be. That he spent the night there, wrapped in a calm so deep that even the passing of time seemed like a whisper. When the first light of dawn touched the edge of the sky, he rose and made his way back to the boat. The lake was as smooth as glass, the reflections of the stars still lingering on its surface. He rowed back to the shore, and as he stepped onto the forest path, he felt lighter, as though some weight he had carried for years had been left behind. The journey back through the forest felt different now. The flowers seemed brighter, the stars warmer. When he reached the stone arch, he turned for one last look. The path beyond was glowing faintly, like a memory fading into morning light. He stepped through, and in that moment, the world returned to its usual colors, the golden autumn leaves, the cool blue sky. But he was changed. From that day onward, Lorien no longer searched for meaning in distant places. He understood that the peace he had found beneath the silver tree lived within him now, waiting in the quiet moments, in the gentle breath of night, in the silence between thoughts. And every evening, as the stars began to rise, he would close his eyes and feel that stillness return, like a quiet song only he could hear. And as you listen now, you too can let this story guide you inward, to a place where your own quiet dreams live. Imagine walking through that glowing forest, stepping into the boat, and sitting beneath the silver tree. Feel its calmness surround you, its warmth filling your heart. Breathe deeply and let your mind grow quiet, like the still surface of the lake. With every breath, you are drifting further into rest. Your thoughts are slowing, Your body is growing heavy, and the world outside your mind is fading into gentle silence. You are safe. You are calm. And as you close your eyes, the silver blossoms of the dream tree are falling softly around you, carrying you into a night of deep, peaceful sleep. Great. I'll start with story 7. The Whispering Garden. The world is quiet now. The day's noise has faded into a soft hush, and the night has begun its slow, tender song. The stars above stretch endlessly, each one glimmering like a tiny candle burning just for you. Take a deep, slow breath in. Hold it for a moment and exhale. As you listen, imagine every breath carrying away the weight of the day, leaving only warmth and calm. Tonight's story will take you to a place of deep stillness, a place where dreams grow like flowers and where every path leads to peace. The old gate beyond a quiet meadow. There stands an old iron gate, its frame entwined with ivy and climbing roses. The petals, pale as moonlight, fall gently to the ground whenever a breeze passes by. Beyond the gate lies a garden said to appear only to those who are ready to find rest. It is not marked on any map, and no one can reach it by following the roads of the world. It is a place that calls to you in whispers when you are ready to let go. There was once a young artist named Oren who dreamed of finding this garden. He had traveled for years, painting landscapes and cityscapes, trying to capture the beauty of the world, but something was always missing. One night, while resting by a quiet lake under a sky full of stars, he heard a voice, not loud, not even in words, but a soft, warm whisper. It called him toward the garden. When he awoke, he found a small path winding into the forest, one he had never noticed before. He followed it, his footsteps slow, each step feeling lighter than the last. At the edge of the forest, he saw the gate, tall, old, and beautiful, its iron scrollwork shimmering under the moon. Entering the garden the moment Oren touched the gate, it opened without a sound. What lay beyond took his breath away. The garden was bathed in silver light, as if the moon had poured itself across every leaf and petal. Flowers of every color bloomed quietly, their fragrance soft and sweet. There was no noise, only the faint rustling of leaves, as though the garden itself was breathing. A narrow stone path wound through the flowers, leading toward a glowing fountain in the center. Oren stepped inside, his heart quiet. As he walked, he noticed the flowers seemed to move ever so slightly, leaning toward him, as though they were aware of his presence. The fountain was carved of white marble, its water sparkling under the starlight. When Oren dipped his hand into the water, it felt warmer than it should have, like a comforting touch. The endless path from the fountain, a second path stretched onward, flanked by tall willow trees whose branches hung low, swaying gently as though in greeting. The path led him deeper into the garden, where time seemed to slow. He couldn't tell how long he had been walking, minutes, hours, or perhaps days. It didn't matter. Every step he took seemed to bring him closer to something beyond words, a deep, restful peace. Along the way, he came across benches carved from stone, each one placed beside a still pond. The ponds reflected the stars so clearly that they looked like windows into the heavens. Oren sat on one of the benches, leaning back, breathing in the cool, sweet air. The silence wrapped around him like a blanket. He felt his eyelids grow heavy, his thoughts quieting like ripples settling on water. The Garden of Dreams. When Oren opened his eyes again, he realized something had changed. The flowers around him were glowing softly, and the air was filled with faint music, soft notes like wind chimes in the distance. He followed the sound, his steps light, until he came to a clearing where hundreds of lanterns floated in the air, each one glowing with a gentle light. Under the lanterns was a tree, its branches wide and heavy with blossoms. A figure stood beneath it, tall, dressed in robes the color of midnight. The figure turned to him, and though Orin couldn't see their face, he felt no fear. The figure spoke in a voice like the rustling of leaves. "Welcome," it said. "You have found the garden that waits for those who seek peace." Orin bowed his head, unsure of what to say. He realized then that this place was not meant to be questioned, only experienced. The figure gestured for him to sit beneath the tree. Orin did, leaning against the trunk, feeling its warmth and strength. The lanterns above swayed gently, their light flickering in time with his breathing. He closed his eyes, and a deep calm spread through him, as though every worry he had ever carried was melting away, dissolving into the quiet earth. The garden hummed around him, not with noise, but with life, with presence. He felt as if the flowers, the trees, the air itself were breathing with him. Each breath he took seemed to take him further from the world of thought, closer to a place of perfect stillness. As he drifted, Orin began to dream. He dreamed of the garden itself, but in his dream, it was endless, stretching beyond mountains and rivers, its flowers blooming in every corner of the world. He saw people resting in its shade, people he knew, people he didn't know, all smiling, all at peace. He wandered through this dream, touching the petals of flowers that whispered songs of hope and love. He saw fountains that glowed like liquid gold and heard streams that sang as they flowed. The dream seemed to last forever, and yet it was never long enough. When Orin awoke, he was still beneath the tree, the lanterns swaying softly above him. He stood slowly, his body feeling lighter, as though the garden had taken the weight of his soul and replaced it with light. The robed figure was gone, but the path ahead was cleared. He walked back through the garden, past the glowing fountain, past the quiet ponds, past the leaning flowers. When he reached the gate, he turned one last time to look at the garden. It was as if it were smiling at him, a silent promise that he could always return, not with his feet, but with his heart. And as you listen now, imagine that you too have walked through that gate. Imagine sitting beneath the glowing tree, feeling its warmth, hearing the faint song of the garden. Let your breathing slow, each inhale drawing in peace, each exhale letting go of the day. You are safe here. You are calm. The night is holding you gently, and the garden is waiting in your dreams. Close your eyes, let your mind drift, and allow sleep to come like the quiet falling of petals on soft earth. Story number 8. The world is quiet tonight. Outside your window, the sky stretches endlessly, scattered with stars that glimmer like tiny lanterns, each holding a story from a distant time. As you listen to my voice, let your body grow still and take a slow, deep breath. Inhale softly, hold for a moment, and exhale, feeling your thoughts slow down. With every breath, the day drifts further away, like a small boat carried down a calm river. High in the folds of a misty mountain range lay an old village known as Alaris. It was a place few had seen, hidden behind peaks that touched the clouds. The village was small, its homes built of smooth stone and dark wood, their roofs covered with moss and flowering vines. The air there was always cool, carrying the scent of pine, earth, and the distant song of running water. At night, the village transformed under the moonlight, as though it were part of a dream where time moved slower and every sound softened into silence. That a young traveler named Kale arrived in Alaris one autumn evening. His heart was weary, and his mind carried the heavy weight of countless restless nights. He had wandered far, searching for a place that could quiet his thoughts. When he stepped into the village, he felt something shift inside him, a deep stillness, as though the mountains themselves had whispered, "Rest, you are home now." The villagers welcomed him warmly, but with few words. They were people of silence, who spoke only when needed, letting their actions and smiles carry their meaning. Kale was given a small cottage at the edge of the village, near the sound of a distant river that ran down from the snow-fed peaks. That night, as he lay on the simple bed, he listened to the river's soft hum, like a lullaby weaving through the air. The sound carried him into a state between wakefulness and sleep, as if the river itself was gently singing him into dreams. The next day, Kale explored the village slowly, his footsteps quiet on the stone paths. He noticed that every home had small lanterns hanging by the door, glowing faintly even during the day. The air was rich with the smell of warm bread and burning wood from distant chimneys. An elder of the village approached him and said, in a voice as gentle as falling leaves, "Follow the river tonight. It will show you what you are seeking." Kale nodded, though he didn't fully understand. That evening, as the sun melted into shades of gold and crimson, he followed the sound of the river. The path was narrow, lined with lanterns that flickered softly like stars trapped in glass. The air was cool, carrying the scent of wet stone and pine needles. When Kale reached the riverbank, his breath caught. The river was unlike any he had ever seen. Its surface shimmered as though countless stars were floating upon it, drifting slowly downstream. Each ripple glowed faintly, turning the water into a mirror of the heavens. He knelt by the edge and touched the surface. The water was warm, and when his fingers brushed against it, the light spread in ripples, like starlight breathing that as he stood there in awe. Kale noticed a small wooden boat tied to a post. It was simple, carved from pale wood, but it glowed faintly as though touched by moonlight. Something deep within told him that this boat was waiting for him. Without hesitation, he stepped inside and loosened the rope. The boat drifted quietly, carried by the soft current. No oars were needed. It simply moved, as if guided by an unseen hand. The river carried him deeper into the valley, winding through forests where the trees bent low, their leaves glowing faintly in the moonlight. Fireflies drifted above the water, their tiny lights dancing in rhythm with the stars. The night was silent except for the soft sound of water lapping against the boat. Kale leaned back, letting the motion of the river lull him into a quiet state, his thoughts fading like mist after some time, though he couldn't tell how long. The boat slowed as it reached a wide, open expanse where the river spread into a still lake. The surface of the lake was so smooth it looked like a sheet of glass, reflecting the stars above in perfect clarity. At the center of the lake stood an island, and on that island was a tree unlike any Kale had ever seen. Its trunk shimmered like silver, and its branches reached high, filled with blossoms that glowed with a warm golden light. The boat glided toward the island, as if drawn to it. When Kale stepped onto the shore, the ground beneath his feet felt soft and warm, as though the earth itself was alive. He walked slowly to the tree, every step filled with wonder. As he placed his hand on the trunk, he felt a deep, steady pulse, like a heartbeat. Then the blossoms began to fall, drifting gently around him, each petal glowing as it touched the ground. Kale sat beneath the tree, leaning against its trunk, and closed his eyes. The world grew quiet, and a warmth spread through his chest, filling him with peace. It was as if the tree was listening to him, taking the weight of his heart and replacing it with stillness. In that moment, He felt as if he were no longer just himself, but part of something vast and timeless, a dream carried by the stars that he stayed there for what felt like hours, though time had no meaning. He watched the blossoms fall and dissolve into the air like tiny lights. At one point, he noticed that the petals seemed to form shapes, memories, moments, and dreams. He saw glimpses of his own past, a child laughing, a hand reaching out to comfort him, sunsets he had forgotten. The tree seemed to hold all these memories, as if it knew him better than he knew himself. Eventually, Kale's eyes grew heavy. He lay down beneath the tree, the grass soft as a bed of feathers. The lantern-like blossoms swayed above him, their golden light flickering like 1,000 tiny suns. As he drifted into sleep, he dreamed of walking through fields of stars, the river glowing around him, the tree's heartbeat echoing like a drum in the distance. When he woke, dawn was breaking. The sky was painted in pale pinks and golds, and the river glowed with the first light of morning. The boat was waiting for him, tied gently to the shore. Kale took one last look at the silver tree, its blossoms swaying in the breeze, and whispered a quiet thank you before stepping into the boat. The journey back was slow and peaceful. The river carried him gently, like a lullaby made of water and light. By the time he reached the village, the sun had risen, but Kale's heart felt as still and quiet as the stars he had left behind. He knew he would never forget the river, the tree, or the peace he had found there. And now, as you listen, imagine yourself floating along that same river. Feel the gentle rocking of the boat, the glow of starlight on the water, the soft warmth of the breeze on your face. Let each breath carry you deeper into calm, deeper into stillness. You are safe. You are warm. You are exactly where you need to be. The stars above are watching over you. The river is carrying you into dreams. Let your body relax, your thoughts fade, and your breathing slow. The night is here to hold you gently as you drift into a peaceful, endless sleep. Story number 9. The night is quiet, the world softened by a blanket of stillness. The stars above are scattered across the dark sky, glowing gently as if each one is keeping watch. A soft breeze moves slowly through the air, carrying the scent of distant rain, and the sound of water drifts like a lullaby from somewhere far away. Take a slow breath in, hold it for a moment, and exhale gently. Let the weight of your day fall away. Let every sound fade into the background, as though the night itself is drawing you into its calm. Far to the east, by a quiet harbor that few have ever seen, there lies a small town named Lyria. It is a place where time seems to move differently, where mornings rise softly and nights stretch endlessly, each moment bathed in golden light from the hundreds of lanterns that line its winding streets. The town is built along the edge of a calm bay, where the sea moves as smooth as glass, and the moonlight dances on its surface like silk. Boats rest gently on the water, swaying ever so slightly, their reflections shimmering like dream fragments. There is a story told by the people of Lyria that the lanterns are not lit by fire or oil, but by memories. Each lantern is said to hold a single, precious memory from someone who has walked the earth, a memory so warm and pure that it glows forever. They say that if you walk the harbor streets at night and pause beneath the right lantern, you can feel the memory inside it, see it, even as if it becomes your own. On a quiet autumn evening, a traveler named Alara arrived in Lyria. She had been searching for something she couldn't name, something that had been missing from her heart for a long time. She stepped off the small wooden boat that had carried her across the bay, and as her feet touched the worn cobblestones of the harbor, she felt something stir inside her. a soft warmth, like a familiar song she had almost forgotten. The streets were glowing, hundreds of lanterns swaying gently in the night air. Each one cast a golden halo on the cobblestones, creating pools of warm light where the shadows couldn't reach. Alara walked slowly, letting her eyes wander from one lantern to the next, feeling as though each one was watching her, waiting for her to stop and listen. The town itself was quiet. Most of the windows were dark, but there was no feeling of emptiness, only peace, like the whole town was breathing slowly, resting deeply as she wandered. Alara came to a narrow bridge that arched over a small canal. The water below reflected the lanterns in long, shimmering lines of gold. She leaned against the railing and closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the soft lapping of the water. The sound was rhythmic, like a heartbeat, and for a while, she simply breathed, letting her thoughts slow down. When she opened her eyes, she noticed one lantern in particular, hanging at the far end of the bridge. Its light was softer than the others, almost trembling, as if calling to her. She walked toward it, her footsteps slow, and as she stood beneath it, something remarkable happened. The lantern's glow brightened slightly, and within its light, she saw an image, faint at first, but growing clearer. It was a memory, not her own, but one she could feel as if it were hers. She saw a small boy running through a field of wildflowers, his laughter carrying on the wind. The image was warm, vibrant, filled with joy. Alara felt tears rise in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the beauty of it. When the image faded, the lantern's glow softened again, returning to its gentle light. She reached out, but her fingers passed through the glow as if it were made of nothing but air and warmth. Alara spent hours that night walking beneath the lanterns, each one offering a new memory. An old woman dancing under the rain, a man painting under a bright summer sky, a child holding their parents' hand on a quiet morning. Each memory left her feeling lighter, as though some quiet part of her heart was being healed by the simple, fleeting beauty of lives she had never known. As the night deepened, she followed the winding streets until they led her to the edge of the harbor. There, at the very end of the pier, was the largest lantern of all. It hung from a tall wooden post, its golden light spilling across the water. The waves below reflected it like a second sun, shimmering with quiet warmth. She sat at the end of the pier, feet dangling just above the water, and closed her eyes. The lantern hummed softly, and an image formed, not of a stranger's memory, but of her own. She saw herself as a child, lying in a field under the stars, feeling the earth beneath her and the endless sky above. She remembered the peace of that moment, a peace she had long forgotten. The lantern's glow seemed to wrap around her, warm and gentle, as if reminding her that this feeling had never truly left her. It was still within her, waiting to be found. She stayed there until the first light of dawn began to touch the horizon. The lanterns all around the town began to dim, their glow softening as the sun rose, but the warmth they left in her heart remained. As she walked back through the quiet streets, the town felt alive in a different way, bathed not in lantern light, but in golden sunlight, each shadow stretching softly across the cobblestones. From that day forward, Alara returned to the lanterns every night. She walked the same paths, stopped at the same bridge, and sat at the same pier. Each time, the memories felt like gentle waves, washing over her, teaching her to be still, to simply breathe. She realized that the lanterns were not just holding memories. They were teaching her to hold her own, to cherish the quiet beauty of the moments that make a life. And now, as you listen, imagine that you too are walking through those lantern-lit streets. Imagine the warm golden glow spilling across your path, the soft sway of the lanterns above you, and the sound of the sea moving gently in the background. Picture yourself pausing at the bridge, leaning against the railing, and watching the water shimmer like melted stars. With each breath, feel the quiet peace of Lyria surrounding you. Let your thoughts soften like the glow of the lanterns. You are safe here. You are warm. The night is watching over you, and the gentle memories held in the light are guiding you home. Close your eyes and let the lanterns lead you into dreams, slow and endless, like the soft tide of the sea. You've reached the end of tonight's stories, but the journey doesn't have to stop here. The lanterns are still glowing, the river is still flowing, and the garden of dreams is waiting just beyond the stars. Allow your body to sink deeper into comfort, your breathing slow and soft, as if you are floating in a calm, endless night. Sleep is here now, gentle and warm. Let go, drift, dream. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story. Good night.